Inonge Wina, Zambia's vice president, has publicly mourned the late Edgar Lungu and turned harshly on the government's delayed reaction. In this video, you'll hear her full statement, uncover what was behind the delay, and why this matters now.
It's a bit, it's rather unfortunate that we have to mourn our leader in this manner. But there's no reason why the venue for mourners can be in different places. However, perhaps the government came up late with the idea of an official venue, because the party had already set up at the party secretariat to be the center for information collection and as a venue for those who are coming from the provinces. For example, they have to collect some information on a number of issues relating to the passing of our leader. But mourning in various places does not necessarily mean that people are not in mourning or people want to fight. I do not believe so. And I think the new venue at the Belvedere site came in after the party had to organize something so that people know where they go to if they arrive in Lusaka or if they converge to get more information.
As we come to the end of this interview, what would be your word of advice to Zambia at large, even as we mourn our former president, Dr. Edgar Lungu?
This is not the first time we are mourning the head of state. We have gone through these trials before, and we have maintained peace in the country. And there is no reason why, even in this particular circumstance we find ourselves, we should not adhere to peace. Mr. Lungu was a very peaceful man. He never knew how to quarrel with anyone. And we have to keep it that way. So for those that are already uttering words that injure others, I ask them, I beg them to stop. For those that feel that this is the time to be excited because a leader who might have posed a political threat is gone, they have to stop. That man was a man of peace, and we should honor him in that manner. And I believe the family will be at ease if they see a change in attitude of some of the political players that seem to be so excited about what has happened, or are so aggrieved that they may do silly things. So I beg every Zambian to honor Dr. Lungu through conducting ourselves peacefully. I would like to share with the country about Dr. Lungu. We may not have enough time to do it, but the man was passionate to see a prosperous Zambia. You know, he grew up during the Kaunda era until 1990, when Dr. Kaunda relinquished his presidency. However, during that period, Zambia was embarking on a road towards development of the industrial sector. And I think Dr. Lungu was of the opinion that let's build on what Dr. Kaunda had left. We had in this country some of us who are freedom fighters, who fought for this country, who fought for our people to be free from oppression, to be free to associate, to be free to speak our minds on things that go wrong, to be free to comment when things go right. And Dr. Lungu was of the opinion that it's important in nation building to build steps towards the achievement of the prosperity that we are looking for. For example, the infrastructure development that we embarked on was, as I said earlier, to open up Zambia to the outside world. Today, the continent of Africa is talking about the Africa Continental Free Trade area. And there are obstacles now we find in this program or project to start running, simply because of the constraints in the infrastructure development around the continent. Dr. Lungu believed in accelerating infrastructure to open up Zambia for ease of doing business. For example, the new bridge at Kazungula now is connecting Zambia to Botswana, to Zimbabwe, to South Africa, to Namibia, easily in a short space of time. Whereas before it took us days to be able to achieve that. Today the Kalabo Mongu bridge, you can drive from Mongu to Kalabo in 45 minutes, a trip that would have taken you 8 hours in the past. So you can see how important infrastructure development is. Today, the new administration is recruiting so many health workers. Why? Because they found that we had put in place so many rural health centers, so many mini hospitals in the rural areas, so that our people could have access to health care. Today, we hear about the dressing up of our school classrooms with desks, with what have you, simply because the schools that were built during our time and the schools that have been built now needed the infrastructure of desks in those units. So you can see that there was a plan towards developing this area, this country. The industrial base that we lost after Kaunda through privatization, a program that was given to the Zambian government by the World Bank and the IMF, took us backwards. We were already a manufacturing country. We were making tires in this country through Dunlop in Ndola. We were making radios in Livingstone. We were making all sorts, we were manufacturing all sorts of commodities in our country. And we lost all that due to privatization. The copper belt towns went to sleep. Why? Because the mines were now taken over by foreigners, away from that CCM that was building infrastructure, sports stadiums on the copper belt and elsewhere. We lost. And for Zambia to come back to what it was, we need to build on the legacy of the past. And what I see in Zambia is when a new administration takes over, they tend to do away with what the others had started. And to me, this is mismanagement. For example, when the PF government came into power, the new administration started to build or to cut up Zambia in pieces.
Former Vice
Inonge Wina Mourns Lungu publicly and criticizes government delay. Here's the full breakdown, key quotes, and why Zambians are responding. Inonge Wina Mourns Lungu slams government over Lungu delay. Introduction and context. The death of Zambia's 6th Republican President, Edgar Lungu, on June 10, 2025, sent shockwaves through the nation, marking a pivotal moment in Zambia's political and social landscape. Inonge Wina, Zambia's former vice president, 2015 to 2021, and a prominent figure in the Patriotic Front, PF party, delivered a condolence speech that resonated deeply with a grieving populace. Her address, delivered in Lusaka, was both a tribute to Lungu's legacy and a pointed critique of the government's handling of the aftermath. The speech came at a time of heightened political tension, with Zambia grappling with economic challenges, including inflation and unemployment, and a polarized political climate following the 2021 elections that saw the United Party for National Development, UPND, oust Lungu's PF. Posts on X reflect a nation divided, with some mourning Lungu as a transformative leader and others critiquing his tenure. Wina's speech, therefore, served as a call for unity while igniting debates about governance, accountability, and national mourning protocols. Her stature as a respected elder stateswoman amplified the speech's impact, setting the stage for a critical examination of the government's response and the nation's path forward. Wina's condolence speech. Inonge Wina's condolence speech was a carefully crafted blend of mourning, reflection, and a call for national unity. Speaking at a public gathering in Lusaka, she described Lungu as a servant of the people, whose leadership left an indelible mark on Zambia. She highlighted his contributions, including infrastructure projects like the expansion of the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport and rural electrification initiatives, which aim to improve connectivity and access to services. Wina also praised Lungu's role in promoting peace during his presidency, particularly his efforts to mediate political tensions during the contentious 2016 elections. Her speech was deeply personal, recounting moments of collaboration during their time in office, such as their joint efforts to advance gender equality and empower women in politics. Wina's emotional appeal included a plea for Zambians to honor Lungu's memory by maintaining peace, stating, "Let us mourn with dignity and not allow our grief to be exploited for division." She urged citizens to reflect on Lungu's vision of a united Zambia, emphasizing his slogan, "One Zambia, One Nation." The speech was broadcast live on national television and widely shared on X, where it garnered thousands of reactions, with many praising her for her eloquence and others noting the underlying political undertones of her message. Wina also called for a period of national mourning to be observed with respect, urging political leaders to set aside differences and focus on collective healing. Her direct criticism of government inaction. The most striking element of Wina's speech was her direct criticism of the UPND-led government's handling of Lungu's death. She accused the administration of unacceptable delays in announcing official mourning protocols and funeral arrangements, arguing that this inaction disrespected Lungu's legacy and risked inflaming public sentiment. Wina pointed to specific lapses, such as the absence of a clear timeline for national mourning and the failure to promptly engage with Lungu's family and the PF to coordinate memorial activities. She stated, "A nation mourns its leader with urgency and respect, yet we see hesitation that breeds mistrust." Her critique was rooted in the government's slow response to logistical arrangements, such as declaring a national holiday for mourning or organizing a state funeral, which are customary for a former head of state. Wina suggested that these delays could be perceived as politically motivated, given the fraught history between Lungu's PF and the current administration. She also referenced the government's failure to address public unrest promptly, noting incidents of protests in Lusaka and Copperbelt provinces, where citizens demanded clarity on funeral plans. While Wina avoided naming President Hakainde Hichilema directly, her remarks were a clear rebuke of his administration's leadership. The criticism sparked heated discussions on X, with some users accusing the government of deliberate neglect, while others defended the administration, citing logistical complexities. Wina's stature as a former vice president and her reputation for diplomacy made her critique particularly weighty, positioning her as a moral authority challenging the government to act decisively. Why the timing matters now? The timing of Wina's speech is critical for several reasons, reflecting both immediate and long-term implications for Zambia's political and social fabric. First, Lungu's death has reignited debates about his legacy, with supporters lauding his infrastructure achievements and critics pointing to economic mismanagement and allegations of corruption during his tenure. This polarization makes the government's response to his death a litmus test for its ability to navigate sensitive political moments. Wina's speech, delivered just 2 days after Lungu's passing, capitalized on this moment to demand accountability while the nation's attention was focused on mourning. Second, Zambia faces ongoing economic challenges, including a 15% inflation rate and a depreciating kwacha, which have fueled public discontent. The government's perceived inaction risks exacerbating these tensions, potentially leading to protests or civil unrest. Wina's call for swift action underscores the need for the government to demonstrate competence and empathy to maintain public trust. Third, with elections looming in 2026, the handling of Lungu's death could shape voter sentiment, particularly in PF strongholds like the Copperbelt and Eastern provinces. Wina's speech serves as a rallying cry for the PF to mobilize its base while pressuring the UPND to avoid missteps that could alienate undecided voters. Finally, the timing matters because Zambia's tradition of national mourning for former presidents is a unifying ritual. Delays or mishandling could deepen divisions, especially in a context where social media platforms like X amplify public grievances. Wina's intervention aims to steer the narrative toward unity and accountability, urging the government to act before public frustration escalates further. Her speech also aligns with calls from civil society for transparency, such as demands for a public inquiry into the circumstances of Lungu's death, which remains a subject of speculation on X. Viewer viewpoints and next steps. Public reactions to Wina's speech, as seen on X and in traditional media, reveal a deeply divided nation. Supporters of Wina and the PF commend her for her courage in holding the government accountable, with hashtags like #JusticeForLungu trending on X. Many view her as a unifying figure who transcends partisan politics, with one user posting, "Mama Wina speaks for all Zambians, not just PF. The government must respect our mourning." Conversely, UPND supporters argue that Wina's criticism is politically motivated, accusing her of exploiting Lungu's death to score points against Hichilema. A prominent pro-government commentator on X wrote, "Wina should focus on mourning, not stirring division. The government is working on arrangements." The controversy has also sparked broader discussions about Zambia's mourning protocols. Some citizens call for a standardized process for honoring former presidents, citing past inconsistencies, such as the handling of President Michael Satta's death in 2014. Civil society organizations, including the Zambia Conference of Catholic Bishops, have echoed Wina's call for unity, urging the government to expedite funeral arrangements and engage all stakeholders, including the PF and Lungu's family. Next steps. Government response. The UPND administration is expected to announce a detailed plan for Lungu's state funeral, including a national mourning period, likely spanning 7 days, and public memorial events. A clear timeline could address Wina's criticisms and quell public unrest. Stakeholder engagement. The government must collaborate with the PF, Lungu's family, and traditional leaders to ensure an inclusive process. This could involve forming a national funeral committee to oversee arrangements. Public communication. Regular updates through press briefings and social media can counter misinformation and speculation, which are rife on X. Transparency about Lungu's cause of death, if appropriate, could also reduce conspiracy theories. Civil society role. Organizations like the Non-Governmental Gender Organizations Coordinating Council, Govt, are advocating for peaceful mourning and dialogue, encouraging citizens to avoid violence. Political reconciliation. Wina's speech could prompt broader efforts to bridge the PF-UPND divide, possibly through a national dialogue on unity. As suggested by some analysts, Wina's speech has placed the government under scrutiny, making its next moves critical to maintaining stability. The nation watches closely as Zambia navigates this moment of grief, with Lungu's legacy and Wina's words shaping the path toward healing or further division.